It was supposed to be a night of laughter, old photographs, and forgotten memories. Instead, it became the night I discovered that my entire life had been built on a misunderstanding that had lasted more than 25 years. The words that stopped my heart were spoken quietly, almost as if they carried decades of regret. At our class reunion, my old lab crush gently pulled me away from the crowd, looked into my eyes with tears she could no longer hide, and silently revealed a question that shattered everything I believed about my past. She wondered whether I had ever received the letter she had written all those years ago. In that single moment, the music faded, the conversations disappeared, and the weight of every choice I had made suddenly felt heavier than ever before. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the incredible ways life can surprise us, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us never to lose hope. I had never planned on attending our 25th high school reunion. Life had become predictable in the quietest way possible. I worked as a civil engineer in a small town, lived alone in a modest house, and spent most evenings reading old history books or tending to the small vegetable garden behind my home. My marriage had ended nearly 10 years earlier, and although my ex-wife and I had parted respectfully, we both admitted that our relationship had slowly faded because neither of us had truly been happy. We had no children, and after the divorce, I buried myself in work, convincing myself that loneliness was simply another stage of adulthood. When the reunion invitation arrived in my mailbox, I almost threw it away. I had little interest in revisiting memories that belonged to people who had long ago moved on with their lives. Yet something inside me whispered that perhaps I owed my younger self one final visit to the place where everything had once seemed possible. Walking into the decorated school gymnasium felt like stepping into another lifetime. Faces had aged, hair had turned gray, and confident teenagers had become parents, grandparents, business owners, teachers, and retirees. The loud laughter echoed against walls that once held our dreams, our fears, and our endless conversations about the future. Old classmates recognized me with warm smiles, and for a while, I enjoyed catching up on the years we had lost. Then, across the room, I saw her. Her name was Emily. Time had changed both of us, but somehow her smile remained exactly as I remembered it. She had been my chemistry lab partner during junior and senior year. We had spent countless afternoons performing experiments, laughing over failed assignments, and helping each other prepare for exams. Everyone around us assumed we would eventually become a couple. Even our chemistry teacher used to joke that we had the best chemistry outside the laboratory as well. I had secretly loved her for nearly 2 years but never found the courage to admit it. Just before graduation, she suddenly became distant. She avoided long conversations, stopped sitting beside me during lunch, and after graduation, disappeared from my life completely. I convinced myself that she had never truly cared about me and that my feelings had simply been one-sided. Accepting that painful conclusion had taken years. When our eyes met across the reunion hall, she smiled gently before walking toward me. We hugged politely, exchanged the usual questions about careers and family, and for a few moments everything felt surprisingly comfortable. Then her expression changed. She glanced around the crowded room before quietly asking if we could step outside for a moment. The evening breeze felt cool against my face as we stood beneath the old oak tree where students had once gathered after football games. She looked nervous, almost frightened, and after several seconds of silence, she asked whether I had ever received the letter she sent me after graduation. The question made no sense. I stared at her in complete confusion. She explained that 2 weeks after graduation she had written a long letter confessing that she had been in love with me since sophomore year. She had apologized for becoming distant during our final weeks because her family was preparing to move across the country after her father's unexpected job transfer. She admitted she had been terrified of falling even deeper in love knowing she might have to leave. In the letter, she asked me to meet her at the train station on the morning of her departure if I felt the same way. She waited there for nearly 2 hours, believing every passing minute meant I had chosen not to come. I felt as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. I never received any letter. Not one. I told her the truth, and I watched the color drain from her face. She searched my eyes as if hoping I might suddenly remember. But there was nothing to remember because the letter had never reached me. We stood there in stunned silence while decades of misunderstanding settled painfully between us. So many years. So many decisions. So many lives built around something that had never actually happened. On my drive home that night, memories flooded my mind. I remembered waiting outside the chemistry classroom hoping she would stop to talk. I remembered convincing myself she had found someone better. I remembered forcing myself not to cry after graduation because I believed she had walked away without looking back. Every painful memory now looked completely different. The following weekend I found myself opening dusty boxes stored in my attic. Old yearbooks, science fair ribbons, faded photographs, and notebooks covered with teenage handwriting filled the room. Hidden inside one of the boxes was an envelope addressed to me in unfamiliar handwriting. My heart raced as I realized it belonged to my late mother. Inside was a small note she had written years before her passing. She confessed that shortly after graduation she had accidentally thrown away several pieces of unopened mail while cleaning the house before our family moved to a different neighborhood. She never knew what those letters contained and always feared she might have discarded something important. Reading those words sent chills through my entire body. Although I could never prove it, deep inside I knew exactly what had happened. Emily's letter had almost certainly been among those discarded envelopes. For weeks I could think of little else. I wasn't angry with my mother because she had never known. Accidents happen. Life changes because of moments no one intends. Yet understanding the truth hurt more than believing the lie ever had. An entire future had quietly disappeared into a trash bin without anyone realizing it. Emily and I began exchanging emails. At first we spoke carefully, almost like strangers trying not to disturb old wounds. Gradually our conversations became longer. She shared photographs of her life in Oregon, where she had married a kind man who sadly passed away from cancer 7 years earlier. They never had children despite years of trying. She described the loneliness that followed his death and admitted she had often wondered what might have happened if I had met her at that train station all those years ago. I shared my own story honestly. I told her about my marriage, the divorce, my quiet routines, and the way I often felt life had become something I simply endured rather than truly lived. Neither of us blamed the other. Instead, we slowly accepted that two good people had simply become victims of unfortunate timing. Months passed. Our emails became phone calls. Phone calls became weekend visits. We explored museums, walked through botanical gardens, attended community concerts, and laughed about the ridiculous chemistry experiments that had once nearly set our classroom on fire. Surprisingly, we weren't trying to recreate our youth. We were simply allowing two older hearts to discover each other without fear or expectation. The awkwardness faded, replaced by an easy friendship built on honesty that had been missing decades earlier. One autumn afternoon we visited our old high school during an alumni volunteer event. The science classrooms had been renovated, but the familiar smell of textbooks and polished floors instantly transported us back to 16 years old. Standing inside the laboratory where our friendship had begun, I realized that while we could never recover lost years, we still possessed something incredibly valuable. We still had today. That realization changed everything. Instead of mourning the life we never lived, we chose to appreciate the life still waiting for us. Emily eventually accepted a remote consulting position that allowed her to relocate closer to my town. We never rushed our relationship. We simply spent time together, supporting one another through ordinary days that slowly became extraordinary because they were shared. Friends often asked whether we regretted the years we lost. Of course we did. Anyone would. But regret alone cannot heal a wounded heart. Only forgiveness can do that. We forgave ourselves for staying silent as teenagers. We forgave fate for its cruel timing. We even forgave the accident that had stolen a letter capable of changing 2 entire lives. Looking back now, I understand something I never understood in my 20s. Love is not measured only by perfect timing. Sometimes love survives inside unanswered questions, unfinished chapters, and impossible circumstances. Sometimes it patiently waits until 2 people become strong enough to appreciate what truly matters. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue sharing stories that inspire hope and remind us that it is never too late for love. Before the ending, here's one special request: please leave a comment and tell us, have you ever wondered how your life might have been different if one message, one letter, or one missed moment had turned out another way? 2 years after that unforgettable reunion, Emily and I returned to the same old oak tree where she had first asked me about the missing letter. This time there were no unanswered questions, no misunderstandings, and no silent goodbyes. The past would always be part of our story, but it no longer controlled our future. We stood together beneath the branches, grateful not for the years we had lost, but for the courage to embrace the years we still had. Life had taught us that some letters never arrive, some opportunities disappear forever, and some dreams take decades to find their way home. Yet as long as the heart remains open, hope has a remarkable way of writing a brand new ending, one that is not defined by what was taken away, but by the love we finally choose to hold on to.